But our essential question, what evidence is there to support the theory of evolution? We're going to go through 5 lines of evidence. So evidence of common ancestry among species comes from many sources. And there are various pictures there of the sources that we will be talking about. So the first line of evidence, like we said, fossils. That is the most common one everybody thinks of and everybody pays attention to. So in Darwin's time, evidence for evolution came from many sources, but fossils were the main source. Fossils are found stuck in rocks. And fossils in bottom layers of rock are more primitive or older than those in the upper layers. This process is called relative dating. So if you take a big slab of rock, if you're looking at a whole cliffside, which scientists do, whatever bones or fossils are found toward the bottom are older. They were buried before the things that are found on the top. And that whole process is just called relative dating. Bottom is older when relative or compared to the top. So fossils are evidence of life from the past, just a simple definition. Besides its age, scientists can tell where it came from and what the environment was like when the organism was alive. By studying the dirt around the fossil, they can tell the chemical composition of it. They can test how much carbon dioxide was in the air, how much iron was in the soil. Iron turns soil red. That's why these big cliffs you see in places, they have these red stripes. There were times in the past where iron was prevalent in our atmosphere and in our soil. And scientists that study fossils are called paleontologists. The second line of evidence that people look at, that Darwin looked at, is called biogeography. Bio means life, of course. And then geography is relative to a place. So it's the study of a place and where specific living things live on the earth. Good morning, Benjamin. Darwin noticed that island species most closely resemble the nearest mainland species. So the Galapagos Islands is where he studied, where he spent a good amount of his time, and he found these birds called finches. And instead of being like finches on maybe the island of Australia, they just look like the finches that happen to be off the coast of South America. So he was noticing patterns on where these living things lived. Populations can show much variation from one island to another. Like the Galapagos are a chain of islands. And while these finches are related, they had variation. They had differences in their beak size and their body size as well. The next line of evidence, and Darwin didn't study this, but we studied a lot today, is called embryology. It's the study of embryos. Darwin noticed that the embryos of crabs resembled the structure of a barnacle. This in itself, so Darwin did study it. This in itself suggests a common ancestor between the two organisms. So in the middle, that is what the larva looks like for both of these organisms. And then for some reason, they split. Some developed into crabs, some developed into barnacles, depending on where they lived. So similar embryos can belong to very diverse organisms. Good morning, Heidi. Good morning, Sophia. So we're going to play a game in the chat box. We have 3 embryos. Can you tell what these 3 embryos are going to grow up to be? Yes or no? Or thumbs up or thumbs down? No, Cynthia's the only one listening. Cambria, maybe. Sophia says no. All right. What about as they get a little bit older? Can we tell yet? Thumbs up or thumbs down? No. Nope. But they all have the spine. They all have the tail. They all have some sort of head, some sort of eyes. And then the last one, now we can tell. This is actually a bat. That's why it's wrinkly. Its wings are forming, especially between its fingers. And this is some sort of monkey or ape. And then this is an angry baby. I always think it looks angry. But they started out, all 3 of them, they look like that. That is what we call evidence of a common ancestor. Fourth line that scientists study is anatomy, structures. We used the term homologous before when we talked about chromosomes. Homo means same, logous means structure. So homologous structures are similar in structure, even though they might have different functions. So in the picture, the structures are color-coded. All the pieces are there, but they look slightly different, and each animal uses them in a different way. And these structures are evidence of a common ancestor. So this is a human arm. You guys are going to go over this a little more in your web quest this week. But your arm bones, this is called your humerus. You have your radius and your ulna, your wrist bones, your hand bones, and your fingers. They're called carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. Well, dogs have those exact same bones. Birds have the exact same bones. And although you might not think of it, whales have the exact same bones. If you x-ray a whale's flipper, it will have a hand and fingers underneath. We are all mammals with homologous structures, which is evidence of a common ancestor. Now, on the other end, there are structures that have a similar function but are structurally different. Those are called analogous structures. So remember the word homologous, same structure. Analogous structures have the same function, but different structures. So these structures are not evidence of a common ancestor. Fins. A shark has fins, a penguin has fins, a dolphin has fins. Penguins and sharks are more related to fish. A dolphin is a mammal. Or penguins are, sorry, technically a bird. Wings are another one. Bats, birds, insects, they all have wings. They all use them in the same way. They all have the same function, but they are structurally different, which makes them analogous. Like I said, bat wings actually form between their fingers, and bird wings form off of their arm. Vestigial structures. Some structural patterns are clues to the history of a species. Vestigial structures are remnants of organs or structures that had a function in an earlier ancestor, but don't necessarily have a function in us now. There's other organisms with vestigial structures, but we tend to relate things to ourselves. Wisdom teeth. I don't know if any of you have had your wisdom teeth taken out, but these are unnecessary. These are vestigial structures. We used to not cook our food and make it softer. So we used to need stronger teeth to be able to eat it. And wisdom teeth are going away. I actually only had 2 wisdom teeth. I forget if they're this way or this way, but I only had 2 that I needed to take out. And that's something I probably passed on to my children. Wisdom teeth as a species are slowly going away in us. Your appendix, something else that just causes trouble, has no discernible function in our bodies. Scientists think it used to be a second stomach because we used to eat once a month. So our bodies had to save food for energy a lot longer than they do now. Now we eat all the time. And then gills. When we are embryos, we have gills. We swim around in our mom's amniotic fluid. It's how we breathe. Obviously, we grow out of them, but we start off with gills. And then DNA. This is the most recent development. In Darwin's time, scientists obviously didn't know what DNA even was, much less the structure of it. Scientists have discovered the sequence of many organisms, including that of humans. The Human Genome Project was completed 20 or 30 years ago, where we sequenced every single one of our 3 billion base pairs, and we figured out which gene controls which feature or which disease. Some genes control diseases or personality traits. And by comparing our actual DNA sequences, scientists can determine the evolutionary relationships between organisms. So we can put our 3 billion base pairs against the 3 billion base pairs of a chimpanzee and realize we are 97% the same. There is only a 3% difference in those 3 billion base pairs, which is still a lot. 3% of 3 billion is still a lot. But that is all for the notes. So finish your notes. Don't forget your summary. Some of you are forgetting your summaries. So I'm going to remind you. If you click on the assignment, all of you clicked on this because that's where you have to get the notes. This is the format Your notes should be in with the titles of the slides on the left and the body of the slide on the right, and then you have a summary. You just need one summary. I don't need one for every page. But number 5, complete your summary at the end of the notes for this section. That is a link to help you if you need help writing a summary. And take clear pictures. Phones always take better pictures than your Chromebooks, so I can actually see it. Now don't forget your summary, and then you got your Edpuzzle. The web quest, it's a document. There's a link to a website at the top. All of the answers need to come from that website. I will be able to tell if you answer them from that website or not. And then you have your Tech for Understanding quiz. This is the end of chapter 10. I have the chapter 10 test at the end of this week if you want to start it early. If not, it is due Monday. It's going to be due first thing next week. And then the end of next week is when the grading period ends. So the 12-week grading period ends next Friday, and then the following week your progress reports will come out.